Hey guys, King of Charmander here. Today I'll be a judge, jury, and an analyst, and today I bring you data from Ytxpikachu. Make sure you follow his socials in the description below. As you see here, we have the Season 8 Ultra Premier Cup Top 10 Most Common Pokemon. That's what I'm going to be covering. As you see, based on this data, there's a lot, well, actually, I've seen like a ton of these things, but like, as you see, here's the list of basically the overall usage, how likely you see it, leads overall, and for various elo ranges. But generally, most of them are all pretty much the same, to be honest with you, as far as like, if you look at the correlation between, like, for example, let's use Empoleon as an example. It's still used a lot in this range, and it's still used a lot in above 2500, so above veteran where I'm at right now. So this data is very accurate, and it's composed of hundreds of battles, well, actually probably thousands of battles, and it will help you severely in deciphering the Ultra Premier Cup meta, which seems to be filled with a lot of extra large creatures, you know? You know, there's a lot of, you know, Clifford's a big red dog, but you know what? In Ultra Premier Cup, it's just filled with big, giant, level 50 Pokemon that's gonna take your elo. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, at number 10 we got Gallade. So Gallade stands at a 10.9% overall usage. You don't see it a lot in the lead, 1.4% actually, which is pretty, same thing with like pretty much overall. It's kinda, so the thing about Gallade lead is you don't really want to lead Gallade because Gallade does lose against things like Jellicent. A9 also gives it a hard time, especially if it's a Charm A9. So there's a lot of things that can give Gallade a hard time in the lead. Gallade's mostly used as a safe switch. As you see here, it's number 43 overall, but best used as a switch. Its highest rating. Definitely recommend it as a switch. The reason being is because Gallade is able to either, one, take switch for you because you're able to nuke with close combat, as you see here, or you're just gonna, or there's a lot of other different movesets you have. Of course, you can also run Synchronize. Leaf Blade is there as well for coverage, being able to take out Swampert in one hit. Also, Leaf Blade is technically the most powerful light grass type move in the game. Confusion does heavy damage, and Confusion will destroy poison types and beat fighters, which is why it's so strong, because it's a heavy, fast move damage move. But as you see here, the reason why Gallade is so good is like I mentioned before. It's very powerful switch. It's able to either, one, break shields for you, or it's going to just smack the unholy crap out of whatever it's in front of it. It's going to punch, and its punch will be mighty. It's kind of like a fairy tale, you know what I mean? Well, it's not like, you know, Gardevoir. Okay, so, you know, fairy tale, if you've watched that anime. If you watch it, it's a very, very, very popular anime. And Gardevoir is technically a fairy, but Gallade is not a fairy, so I'm talking about the wrong thing, so ignore that. Anyways, as you see here, Gallade does have a hard time against the Dragon archetype. Dragonite does give it a hard time. You still do a decent amount of damage if you are able to hit a close combat. So, Dragonite still takes heavy damage if you're able to close combat through shields, which is normally the thing, the play I will do. Just because you're gonna lose if you hit it hard, if you get enough confusion damage through, and then you hit it with close combat, you possibly can take switch against Dragonites, etc. Togekiss is a hard one though. Togekiss, that's why you have Synchronize. Some battlers are actually using Synchronize in order to take out Togekiss in that switch scenario. But other than that, Gallade does lose. The reason why Gallade is a rough lead is because Gallade does lose against Flyers, Ghosts, Togekiss, of course, because of Charmers, because Gallade is a fighting type. But as you see, Gallade does really well against Poisons, Water types, of course, and of the Fighters. It also is a really good matchup against Kingdra. Now, here's the thing. Against Kingdra, if it does debuff you, you're kind of in trouble, as with any Kingdra safe switch. So, but Gallade is still an incredibly powerful safe switch, statistically very, very powerful, and still used a lot in the top teams for Season 8 Ultra Premier Cup. Alright, next up we got at a standing whooping 11.6%, we got Politoed. So Politoed is an XL, so if you're going to use your Politoed, Shadow, or Regular, it is level 50 and does require an XL. Now, the reason why Politoed is so good is because it's literally the fastest charge move pressure, one of the fastest charge move pressure mons in the game. Because Politoed got Weather Ball, it gets a really, really good it gets a really, really good move for only 35 energy. So it only takes 8 turns to get to its fast move, to get to a charge move. which is one of the fastest, one of the fastest other than like Galarian Rapidash and a few others. Well, not a few others. I think it's like less than 5. But that's the reason why everyone's using Politoed, and Politoed can go to level 50. As you see here, Politoed is great in all positions. Politoed, you have the option of using Earthquake, Blizzard. It has a ton of great moves. Usually, it has either Earthquake or Blizzard. Earthquake, unfortunately, is Legacy, so you're going to have to give it an Elite TM if you want to get an Earthquake Politoed. The thing about Politoed is basically like a machine gun. It's going to fire a whole lot of moves at you. It's gonna, it's a lot. So that's why if you should know your counts with Politoed or with Blizzard and with Earthquake, just so that you know like it's about to ball out. It's about to ball out like the Suns did against the Clippers if you are an NBA fan, because dang, that was a good last shot. If you know what I'm talking about, DeAndre Ayton just basically it was like a 1-point game, and then they did this really sweet play, and then they balled out and won the game, just like how Politoed will ball out on you. Now, recommended is Earthquake. You can run Blizzard, but Earthquake is recommended. As you see here, with Earthquake, you're able to take out things like Empoleon. You're also able to one-shot Gengar, and you're also able to cover Ampharos. So that's why Earthquake is a recommended moveset. You have your coverage moves. Blizzard, though, isn't a bad choice, because with Blizzard, you can take out Dragonite, Venusaur, and Kingdra if it goes through shields. So the trick with Politoed is just knowing the second move. If it's a Blizzard, it's gonna suck. And if it's Earthquake, and you hit a 6'4", 26'9" Earthquake Magnitude Earthquake on your Pokemon, and it's weak against it, well, it's gonna suck for you too. But Politoed is very expensive, and it is really strong for just Ultra League, since level 50 got announced. As you see here, it does max out at almost level 50, and you need the low attack, high defense, standard IVs for a rank 1 if you want to use it. Now, I wouldn't say like it's not that bad if you use a bad IV one, but if you're going to invest in any level 50, as I always mention, you probably want the highest rank you possibly can. Alright, next up we got Dragonite. So, just to put it out there, Dragonite and Kingdra Dragonite has a 12.3% usage. And a lot of people are using it in the lead, like before, just because Dragonite, it does cover a lot of ground. Kingdra's also at 10.2%, so the double Dragon teams, I've seen it around a lot still. Dragonite lead's still really good because you can cover Swampert, Venusaur. It also has a really great matchup against Talonflame, as well as Politoed, as long as you don't get hit by a Blizzard. So, with Dragonite. Dragonite is an incredibly powerful mon. Probably I wouldn't say cheap, but probably one of the most versatile options on here. As you see, it beats all the elemental Pokemon, like I mentioned before. Has a really strong matchup against fighters, and it's very, very flexible. A lot of people have it in the back or in the lead. As you see here, Dragonite only has Dragon as well as, like, Dragon. It has Hurricane, or you might see Outrage. Some people are running Draco Meteor just to, like, OKO some opponents, but it's not really a bad idea. As you see, but the thing is, Draco Meteor is Legacy as well as Dragon Pulse. As you see here, it does have Dragon Tail as well, so if you want to use the Dragon Tail through the shield strat, or not really Dragon Tail through the shields, but Dragon Tail is a 3-turn move, recently got buffed, and if you're able to get Dragon Tails through charge moves, it actually does a whole lot of damage. So just keep that in mind. Dragon Tail is not a bad idea if you want to, like, just blast your opponent to death. Dragon Breath's a good one too. Now, the main difference between Dragon Breath and Dragon Tail is that Dragon Breath is a 1-turn move. It's easier to catch moves with Dragon Breath, and 1-turn moves cancel out charge moves if you're going to die to one Dragon Breath. Well, most of you probably already know that because it's happened to you and it's happened to me. So if you're 1 HP in a Dream, your charge move won't go off because 1-turn fast moves take priority over charge move activation. So just keep that in mind. So there is reasons to run Dragon Breath, and there are reasons to run Dragon Tail. Most people are actually running Dragon Breath though, just because if you get debuffed with Dragon Tail anyway, say you're facing a Kingdra mirror, or if you're in a mirror match, it's gonna be a really rough matchup with Dragon Tail and Dragon Breath, because it's gonna be a very, like, rough, because you'll still basically, like, simultaneously KO each other if it's a mirror match. But as you see here, it does lose against Kingdra, and Kingdra can debuff you. Dragonite isn't also very bulky, so that's why things like Gengar and Alolan Muck, things that outpace it, can take you out. And basically other Dragon Breath users. So Dragonite's worst nightmare is other Dragon Breath users that aren't weak to Dragon Breath, which is Dragon Breath Charizard, Gyarados with Dragon Breath, those two will absolutely destroy you, so just keep that in mind. Anything with Dragon Breath that's not a dragon is going to possibly kill you. Steel types also give you a hard time because they essentially wall you, which is like, as you said, Empoleon. Excalibur kind of doesn't because Hurricane does neutral damage because you have a Steel and Bug type, but basically Steel types are your worst nightmare, and Dragonite doesn't do very well against them. Bulky, powerful, maxes out at 23 to 26, so it's not that expensive because it's not XL, but it does cost 75 dust for its second move. So at the same time, it's not too cheap either, just to keep that in mind. But it's overall, it's still a really good pick, and you're going to see a lot in either the back or in the lead for Ultra Premier Cup. Alright, now that we're done covering Barney, I got Talonflame. Now, I've already covered Talonflame before in my top 10 Ultra, so I'm not going to go over it for this one that much, but for Ultra Premier, it does operate a little differently. For Open Ultra League, Talonflame, Flaming Chicken, KFC, whichever one you want to call it. If you like spicy chicken, make sure it's not extra hot because it might be a Talonflame. As you see here, Talonflame is at number 28. It's still really, really good for Ultra Premier, just because there's not a lot of things in this meta that do resist both. There's not a lot of things in this meta that will resist both a Brave Bird and Flame Charge. So there's basically nothing that completely walls you. And Brave Bird, even though resisted, still does big damage. So Brave Bird hits like a truck, and it's not like a Transformer, it's like a Hurricane, and it's going to come in like a Wrecking Ball, and it's going to destroy you. So just keep that in mind. But as you see here, Talonflame does really well against the Charmers. It also does well against some of the Confusion users. The Elemental Pokemon, it can beat Swampert. So the thing about Swampert, if you eat a Brave Bird, it does like 90% of your HP. So Swampert doesn't like Brave Bird, and because of Talonflame's unique ability to beat Swampert, it's really, really freaking good. Now, it still doesn't have, and it doesn't have a good time against things that resist fire, like Incinerate and Flame Charge. However, again, because of Brave Bird doing so much damage, Brave Bird can do a ton. Like, your opponent has it's gonna heavy shield pressure your opponent. So your opponent will be like, okay, do I shield or do I not shield? That is the question. But as you see here, it's a fantastic lead. The reason being is because what you can do is if you lose the lead, you can Brave Bird, get shield advantage, and then switch out, depending on what you're facing. The problem is it's level 50. You need a level 50, which is preferred, and the rank 1 is a perfect. So you need, unless you caught one during Community Day, or they actually spawn like fletching spawn in the wild very occasionally. So you should have you should either be able to build a Talonflame or have enough to, like, it's not that hard to build one nowadays. But it's still very, very expensive, not friendly barrier to entry, but it does really well in Ultra Premier Cup. It stands at a 13.7%, so a lot of people are using Talonflame in their team, possibly, and I've seen a lot of the strategy like I mentioned to you. Either it just outright wins the lead, or you Brave Bird through shields, or you're going to Brave Bird, force a shield, come out next switch out, and you have shield advantage. So very, very powerful Pokemon, especially in the lead, and if you don't have shield, and it hits you with a Brave Bird, you better hope you have insurance, because that Suburban's gonna hit you really hard. Alright, so this is probably my favorite part about this list, is that budget pick Pokemon, as in the starter Pokemon, are actually incredibly powerful. To put an honorable mention, Charizard does stand at 5.6%, so there are some trainers still using it in the Ultra Premier Cup, which is nice because Dragon Breath Charizard does beat Kingdra with Dragon Breath. It also defeats Dragonite, so it's a very good pick. However, the two big ones are, first off, Venusaur. Venusaur stands at 14.4%. If you invested in one since Season 3 is when Ultra Premier Cup, yeah. Season 3 is when Ultra Premier came out. It's a very great investment because it's incredibly powerful. As you see here, still stands. You can use Shadow or Regular. I prefer the regular one just because there's a lot of scenarios where both might be very useful, and the regular one, you don't, like, Earthquake doesn't put you in a lot of danger if a Swampert somehow Earthquakes through shields. As you see here, it does really well against the, well, Grass and Poison is very powerful for several reasons. You resist fighters, you also resist charmers. So charmers and fighters, you do resist them. You also resist electric types, and you have a very good matchup against the water types. Sludge Bomb also hits dragons really, really hard. So what happens against Dragonite, I've done this a lot, or if you've seen that, it's part of my number 1 budget team, which is factually very powerful. If you do face a Dragonite, you can and they have to shield one of your Sludge Bombs. So you can get to 2 Sludge Bombs with a good IV Venusaur, and, well, mine is like rank 200. And you could possibly force shields or come out with switch. So Venusaur has a lot of sack sack lead capabilities as long as you don't see a Confusion or Ice user, which is why Obama Snow is your worst nightmare. But because Frenzy Plant is so powerful, you can still do heavy damage against things like Muck and Charizard, even though it's resisted. Like, if what you're using Frenzy Plant against doesn't have a ton of bulk, it's gonna hit like a truck. So, not quite like a Suburban, but you know what? Trucks are still pretty dang heavy. And Venusaur is gonna hit you really hard. The good thing about Venusaur too is Venusaur only takes 10k dust for its second move. As you see here, 10k dust. 10k dust, Frenzy Plant is incredibly powerful, and of course Sludge Bomb is the standard move as well. Sludge Bomb has a ton of coverage, and Vine Whip does charge very quickly. It's great in all positions, mostly used as a closer, so you're going to see Venusaur a lot in either the back or the lead. In the lead, it stands at 3.1%, but it's also, like, very... Yeah, it's also very, like, I've seen a lot of it used in the lead, too. It's not a bad lead because it can catch those Swamperts, or you can sacrifice Venusaur in the lead, like I mentioned before, and then just sweep with your back row. That's a good strategy with Venusaur. But, again, great budget pick, and definitely if you're thinking about a long-term investment, Venusaur has been relevant for, like, since, like, Season 3 for Ultra League. So, not a bad idea to build one up if you're thinking about it. Alright, next up we got Swampert. Swampert is incredibly powerful for Ultra Premier Cup. It stands at number 3. Of course, the only issue is because of Hydro Cannon, just like every other mon out there are like Community Mons. You need to wait till you can get the Community move to evolve it, and then get its exclusive move. Hydro Cannon with Swampert is a nightmare. In fact, it was so powerful at one point, Hydro Cannon was actually, like, nerfed just because of Swampert. So, Swampert used to be, like, you wouldn't think about it, but the extra base damage you would get when it wasn't nerfed was just nuts. And when it was out, it was destroying everybody. Good thing is, Go Battle League wasn't out back then, because you would have definitely seen the raging rage about Swampert. This mud boy or mud lady, depending on which one you have, would destroy your entire lineup and take all of your elo. Anyways, as you see here, this amphibious destroyer will what the? Well, it is a destroyer, but as you like, not quite like the Death Star, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a Star Destroyer, like, you know, like do I have the wrong franchise? You know, I do like Star Wars, but a Destroyer, yes, Destroyer is one of the aircraft. Anyways, as you see here, Swampert is a really great budget pick. I'm not going to go over it too much because I've gone over it in a lot of my common picks or top picks. Swampert does really well with Earthquake and Hydro Cannon, because the Hydro Cannon, if you have really good energy management, Hydro Cannon, you can stack up Hydro Cannons. You can do those, like, you could stack up Hydro Cannons, and there's a lot, like, Swampert wins CMP in a lot of scenarios. So as you see here, it has a pretty decently high attack stat, and it wins CMP against a lot of things. So if you can time things correctly, you can put your Swampert in a good position. I would do that a lot. Like, I would literally squeeze every life an inch out of my Swampert so I could Hydro Can my opponent to death. Earthquake also does big damage. Earthquake will hurt a Venusaur very hard, or a Kingdra, so if your opponent gets hit by Earthquake, it's guaranteed to do, if it's not resisted, probably gonna do like half its HP. So just keep that in mind. Now, the thing that sucks about Swampert is that it does lose against, like, the Dragon types do have a very strong matchup against it because Hydro Cannon is resisted. You're still going to hit them really hard, but it's still really rough. Also, things like Gallade with Leaf Blade is probably another thing, or Venusaur. Because Swampert is a ground and water type, it takes 4 times damage from grass types, which means if you get hit by a Leaf Blade, you're probably going to die. If you get hit by a Frenzy Plant, you are definitely going to die. But Swampert's impressive pressure as well as Earthquake coverage allows it to do a lot of damage. Some people were actually using Sludge Wave. It was actually preferred moveset before, because Sludge Wave is able to cover the fairy types. But because Earthquake just does so much damage and you get the same type of attack bonus, and there's a lot of popular targets nowadays for Earthquake, it actually took over. Very, very powerful, very, very good, and does really well in this cup. Again, it only takes 10k dust. Its only weakness is grass, so you're going to take a ton of damage from grass, but it does resist a ton of things like poison, steel, etc. So it's a fantastic pick, and again, with only 10k dust, it's very, very good for the Ultra Premier Cup. Alright, next up we got Machamp. Goro, 4 arms, whichever you want to call it, is incredibly powerful, and it's really good. Now, like I mentioned before, I already went over Machamp in some previous videos, so I'm not going to go over it super hard. Machamp is really good with Rock Slide and Cross Shot because you're able to Rock Slide. You win straight Rock Slide against Talonflame. Rock Slide also does heavy damage against things like Charizard. You can also cover things like Gyarados. It's just such a great coverage move and has a very, very powerful base damage. So Machamp in a lot of scenarios can Rock Slide your opponent to death, which is why in the closer, if you have a Togekiss that's hurt, Rock Slide can KO it. So that's why Machamp's really good. Great coverage. Recently had a community day this year, so if you have one, you probably have one just cooking in there. They also pop up a lot in cloudy weather, and it's a very long-term investment. Machamp's been relevant forever. It's been really good since Season 1, or even the preseason, so if you're thinking about, oh, Machamp ain't gonna be that good, it actually got better over time. From Season 2 up until now, it's been very strong, but because of its ability to cover Talonflame and Fire types, and just because Rock Slide has such high damage, it's a really good move. Or, really good mod. Really good move here. But as you see, it's really good. It also recently got Payback, which is a coverage nuke. Don't run Payback in Ultra Premier. Just don't do it. The thing is, Payback in Ultra Premier, there's like almost no targets. You can target Ghost types with it, but if you have Payback, you basically give up your chance against Togekiss, which is why Rock Slide is the recommended moveset. Also, because Machamp has such a ridiculous high attack, it wins CMP against almost practically everything in Ultra Premier Cup. So it's very strong, win CMP, very good as a lead, because if you win the lead and you're able to rack up cross chops, it's going to do heavy damage. Now, the thing about Machamp is it's not super bulky, which is why it loses really hard against Swampert and Venusaur. Swampert and Venusaur, like Frenzy Plant or basically any of the community moves, will basically roast the Machamp to death. Machamp does do really well against the Ice archetype or Empoleon, Steels, and Ice, just because they're weak to Fighting. Fighting has great coverage against a variety of mons, but you really have to be careful of confusion users like Gallade, Charmers, like Togekiss, and of course you're going to have to try to force shields against things like Gyarados if you use it as a lead. Also, because poison types do resist you, they have a really strong matchup in Venusaur and Roserade. So Machamp is a very, very strange, Machamp is really good, and it does cost a decent penny. Does cost 50k so it's like the only one below that 10k, so it's still a pretty good bang for your buck, and like I said, long term it's gonna do really well for you in this cup. Alright, now bow down to the Emperor. Well, no, it's bow down to the Queen or bow down to the King, but okay, you know what, it doesn't fit the crowd. But you know what, Empoleon is at number 4. Empoleon stands at 16.5%, being the most powerful lead. Or not really more powerful, but like most popular lead. It stands at 8.3%. Second to that is Swampert. Third to that's Dragonite, and then you got G-Fisk. So it's basically the most likely lead out of all combinations. For good reason. Empoleon is a water steel type. Because of its hybrid typing, it's incredibly powerful. It takes out Charizard, gives you a good chance against the Charmers, also resist the confusion users. And Hydro Cannon and Drill Peck Waterfall do a lot of damage. Empoleon's also really good for the sheer reason that, like, it does carry Hydro Cannon, and Drill Peck does cover your weaknesses, as in Venusaur and Obama Snow. Drill Peck won't OKO them, but Drill Peck does a decent enough damage to where if Venusaur and Obama Snow are weak, then Drill Peck will KO. So just keep that in mind. Empoleon's also, it's mainly because of its hybrid typing, it's a very defensive Pokemon, even though it has such high attack as you see here. Best used in the lead, as you see in its performance, just because with Empoleon you catch the Dragon Breath users, with Empoleon you also catch the confusion users as well as the Charmers. So it has a lot of potential, and it's been really good since basically Season 1. As you see here, it's budget tier. So just because it costs only 10k dust, as you see here, its community mon move and water and steel type is just so freaking good. It's heavy amount of resistances. It's why it's really, really strong. Being able to resist basically like 11 types. So 11 types of resistance makes it really good. Of course, it's going to fall at Ampharos, Machamps, which are fighters, and of course ground types, which are Galar and Stunfisk. The good thing is you are a water type, so Waterfall will do super effective damage, and Hydro Cannon will do chunk. It'll chunk a lot. But it's still very, very good. If you're considering Empoleon as a budget mon, it's in the top teams. And because of its ability to resist so many things because of water and steel, it's a really great mon for Ultra Premier Cup. And its overall usage is at 16.5%. So a lot of people are still using Empoleon. Empoleon Double Dragon is still out there, or you can see Empoleon in the closer a lot. I see when I was in Ultra Premier Cup in there, a lot of people were using Empoleon, either the lead or the closer. Alright, next up we got the big two. This is basically the most powerful and most annoying core in Ultra Premier Cup. It's Alolan Ninetales XL and Jellicent XL. First off, we got Alolan Ninetales XL standing at a whooping 16.9% and 5.2% in the lead. It's very viable for individuals to have one, just because if you live in the southern hemisphere, I don't live in the southern hemisphere, I live in the northern hemisphere because I'm from America. I'm very uncultured, but because I'm Filipino, I'm also very cultured. So, you know what? It's pretty. I dig Lumpia. I dig Lumpia. I dig Halo Halo. If you know what I'm talking about, we can be friends. Anyways, as you see here, Alolan Ninetales ranks at number 20, and you need an XL. And like I said, because Vulpix has been out forever, Alolan Ninetales uses Vulpix candy. So if you've been playing since day one, and you've heavily grinded for Vulpix candy, well, Alolan Ninetales is your best friend because you convert a lot of those candy to XLs. Again, it also spawns in the southern hemisphere a lot, so you've had a way better chance of getting it in the south than you do in the north. So, yeah. Alolan Ninetales XL is a beast. It's basically one of the most powerful... regular one can work too, but the reason why the ice one's so powerful is because it resists dark types. Just because it's fairy. That fairy archetype allows you to resist Dragon Breath. It also allows you to resist dark type users, which is why A9 is really strong. A9, as an ice type with Powder Snow and Weather Ball, is also able to do heavy damage. Dazzling Gleam is a huge nuke boot, being able to take out the dragons if you aren't able to Weather Ball them to death. Usually Weather Ball is enough for you to take it out. As you see here, it takes out the ice type and the dragon archetype very comfortably. Takes out fighters do neutral damage against you, so that's why you have a loss against Shadow Champ. Rock Slide hurts a lot, so if you do get hit by a Rock Slide, unfortunately, you will die. Also, Alolan Ninetales, the reason why it's kind of rough is because you do effectively get walled by Empoleon. Any steel type will basically wall you because steels resist both Weather Ball as well as ice and fairy types. So, basic reason why. Fire also. You also hate getting lit on fire, as you see here. And there are mons like Swampert that can out-damage you. But the reason why Alolan Ninetales is so powerful is because with Jellicent is the most powerful core in Ultra Premier Cup. As you see here, very good in all positions. Mostly used as a... You can lead with it. I've seen a lot of people lead with it. Yeah, I've seen a lot of leads, or it's in the back. So, it's either position that's very, very strong. And with Weather Ball and with Powder Snow, you can fire up, but you could ball out. You're gonna be the 3-point champion if you have a 3-point contest champion if you have an A9 in your team. It has Psyshock for coverage. I wouldn't recommend it. Just run nukes because you're either gonna Dazzling Gleam or you're going to Weather Ball. And with Dazzling Gleam, you can hit things like Umbreon really hard, and you can like Umbreon. Dragons, like I mentioned before, as well. So just keep that in mind. It's a very, very strong mon. You gotta be careful of fire types. Poison types will also kill it, which is why I'm gonna mention in after I cover Jellicent, just why it's so bad. But it does have a 16.9% usage. So a lot of people are using Ninetales A9s, and it's very possible for you to have it. The only part is it is XL, and it's really expensive. Maxing out at basically it maxes out at level 50, so you're gonna spend probably 200 plus grand if you want to power one up. And it's annoying. Very annoying. And last but not least, we have Mr. or Mrs. Pringles, the Emperor or Empress Man of or Lady of War, the blue or pink. You know what, I've already introduced it now. Anyways, this Emperor or Empress, Jellicent with the crown, is the absolute destroyer and the most common Pokemon in Ultra Premier Cup. I have also seen this in Open Ultra, so a lot of Jellicents are running around in both leagues, and Jellicent's really strong for good reason. Hex was recently buffed, and because of that, plus Jellicent's amazing bulk, it's excessively powerful. As you 17.3% overall usage with a 4.5% lead percentile, which isn't as high as other ones, but you can definitely expect to see this in a lot of teams, or just in the lead or back. It's really strong. It has a lot of coverage use. Bubble Beam can debuff you. Shadow Ball hits like a truck, so Hadouken, whichever you want to call it, or the Turtle Wave, which Kamehameha Wave, which is Dragon Ball Z, by the way, and it's really annoying for this cup. It was also the number 9 overall for Ultra Premier, but as you see here, it's also an incredibly powerful lead. Great save switch and a great closer, so it's good across the board, and it's the number 1 attacker, so it's going to do a ton of damage. The reason why Jellicent XL is so good is because it's excessively bulky. One of the bulkiest mons for this meta, and with A9 is an incredibly powerful core. And it maxes out at level 50. So the thing is for Jellicent is it's really annoying to get. You can only get Frillish through GBL rewards, or they're really rare outside. So you either have to walk in, find a bunch of Frillish, or hunt for them in either foggy weather, which almost never happens by the way, or in rainy weather, because in rainy weather you do get boosted Frillish. So if you've worked really hard, you have a Jellicent XL, and something that has really high barrier to entry and is just really annoying to get is the #1 and most common Pokemon in Ultra Premier Cup. So as you see here, it's really good. It has the option of using Ice Beam or Bubble Beam. I've seen both used. Ice Beam, I've encountered both Ice Beam. I've also encountered Bubble Beam. So either moveset's fine. Your stat, both are like one. It's either likely gonna have one or the other, but it's definitely gonna have Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, you get stab, so you get same type attack bonus, and with Shadow Ball, you just hit, like, it hits really hard. If you don't shield the Shadow Ball, it's gonna do, against most matchups, unless it's resisted, will do probably half your HP or more. Now, it's ridiculously expensive, 50k Dust XL, so you're gonna cost, like, to build one, it's gonna cost like 300 grand, at least, at a minimum. So if you do have one, it's really freaking good. And along with Alolan Ninetales is the most powerful core in Ultra Premier. As you see here, I did a little snippet for you just because of Jellicent and Alolan Ninetales Ultra Premier Cup. As you see, this core alone has incredibly safe, great coverage, and great bulk. Consistency doesn't matter too much, because when you have great safety and great bulk, you know, they're gonna live long enough to fire a bunch of charge moves at you anyways. Now, this core is the sheer reason why, this core is basically the reason why Ultra Premier Cup's a nightmare. Because if you don't have one of these two, if you don't have a Ferrothorn XL, a Skuntank XL, this core is really rough. Magnezone's also really good against this core as well. However, Magnezone does get hit really hard by Shadow Ball, and it's not exactly super bulky. A lot of people have been using Core Breakers to Core Break Jellicent and Alolan Ninetales. Roserade's also out there as well, so Roserade's been used, Ferrothorn, and Skuntank, but basically that's why you see XL Ferrothorns being used by a lot of people, or XL Skuntank, or basically Roserade, just because of their ability to break this core. Because it's so popular, if you break this core, you'll do really well in Ultra Premier Cup, but that's why it's really stale. You either become the meta, or you go against the meta. In this case, XLs being so expensive, you know, if we really want your players to come and build the Go Battle League community, would you like to sell your arm, your leg, or your liver? Because either one, you're gonna, or really just like most of your time throughout the day, because that's what's gonna take if you want to build XLs for Ultra Premier Cup. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I went pretty in depth in all these, and it kind of like you're pretty prepared if your teams are, I don't know what to say, man. You know what? The XLs are just really freaking good. It's like, it's really bad. It's good for you if you have them. Yes, you can beat XLs, but that still doesn't kill the argument that they're really that powerful. Yes, a lot of things that do beat XLs are usually, you're gonna use community Pokemon, or people that are saying that beat them have things like Alolan Muck, which, by the way, costs like 75k dust for a second move. You can only catch them for hatch, and they're really expensive. Basically, there's no cheap way for you to really do well against the meta. You're either going to have legacy moves, or you're going to either use really expensive mons or cores. And XLs really did hurt the game for newer players, so as a very experienced player that's been playing this game for a long time, not just I opened the app to catch one Pokemon a day, I really do feel for you. I wish barrier to entry was lower, just because it's really bad. I don't think you should spend this much. There's no game that's going to require you to spend this much time, at least just grinding. Like, you grind in other games too, but Pokemon Go itself, depending on where you live, depending on how, your environment, the average gamer isn't going to walk a bajillion kilometers, unless you're using DFID, etc., to get an XL mon. And even then, that's a lot of work. Most people I know would rather play games that don't require you to do all this work and time. Not saying those players don't work as hard or grind as hard, because usually their games are a lot more complex and have a lot more mechanics and require a hell of a lot more player skill and reflexes than Pokemon Go PvP does. Trust me, we are not an incredibly complex game. You could be really good at this game with a year of practice, and just literally copying people. We're the only game where you can make the highest rank literally by copying people verbatim. Just because you copy their team, you have a higher amount of player skill, and poof. Because if you go on social media, people are like, yay, thank you for the team. There's no other game out there that lets you, like, reach the highest level by copying people's teams. Or just having a Pokemon that other people don't. Enough about my rant, though. I hope you do enjoy the video. I hope you guys are doing well in your Go Battle League sets. Just because, as you see, Ultra Premier Cup is basically the XL. It's basically XL Cup. The XL Cup, in a sense. So it's literally the XL Cup at this point. So is Open Ultra League, but in Open Ultra League you have a mixture of Legendaries and XL, so pick your poison. Which one do you like, and which one would you like to partake in? Anyways, if you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. I'm almost at 2K subs, so if you would please, all of you that are already subscribed, I do really appreciate you. I love y'all to death, and I really do appreciate you. And every time I end my video, I say I appreciate my subscribers, because I really do. And if you haven't subscribed yet, all you have to do is go to the bottom right, as you see here. By the time you are done listening to the sound of my voice, you can easily subscribe, because all you have to do is put your mouse at the bottom right. When that little box that says subscribe, it'll pop up a tab that says subscribe, and you can easily click on it, and boom, you're subscribed. It's totally free, by the way. Did I mention it's free? It's totally free. It doesn't cost you a penny. It just costs you 5 seconds of your time, and it really helps out the channel, and I do appreciate it. Anyways, I hope you guys did learn something from this video. As you see from the basis of the data, XLs are taking over, and unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. Go Battle League is still broke, and the system is still really bad. Other than that, I really do hope you do all your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.